Welcome to Creating Calm Parenting with Mind, Body, and Spirit. I'm A.R.E, your co-host. I'm an integral leadership coach, a mother of two, and a lifelong student of the Edgar Cayce readings. And I'm here with my friend and co-host, A.R.E. Hi, A.R.E.
Hi, Corinne. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. A.R.E. Diamco. I'm an integrative physician, a pediatrician, and a cranial osteopath, and a mom of four. And I so love having these conversations with you, Corinne, and to bring all of this here for you today. So we have another great episode for you. It is on how to navigate the teen years with a holistic approach, because as we know, there can be a lot of some stress during the teenage years, and parents can feel kind of anxious about what their teens are going through. And so what we thought we would do is go through a sample series of readings for a teenage girl between the ages of 12 and 17 and go through some of the common issues that she's facing that many teens are facing today. And we'll review that with the Cayce perspective. So we will be going through a body, mind, and spirit approach through the teen years. So before we get to that, Corinne is going to lead us through our opening meditation.
All right. Yes. So let's just take a moment to center ourselves. If you can, close your eyes. If not, just let your attention drop inward and bring your attention to your low belly, below your belly button, and invite a softness there. Invite your breath to drop down a little bit lower. And let yourself just relax. Soften the muscles in your hips and low back, your shoulders and chest, and your jaw. And let's take 3 deep breaths together. All right. Thank you so much. So, as A.R.E. mentioned, we're going to be talking about how to raise our teens through a holistic perspective using a case study of 4 readings that were given for a girl between the ages of 12 and 17. These readings were requested by her mother. They're physical readings, and there's also one mental spiritual reading. So we'll be tracking her questions and diving into the body, mind, spirit. And A.R.E. and I were just blown away by how many of the things that this mother and her daughter we're struggling with as mothers of teens as well. And really the beautiful integration of body, mind, spirit, the intermingling and kind of weaving together of how we address and engage in the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual kind of all at once, and how to do that. So we're going to lay out some pretty specific how-tos. But before we get started with that, I'd like to offer an excerpt from one of the readings that was given for this girl whose number is 1204, and this comes from the first reading. And it says, "Seek to make the will development strong in an ideal. The spiritual forces and atmosphere are as necessary as the care of the physical or mental body, the will being that controlling factor in these respects. Let that atmosphere, that environment exist about the body that will make for a oneness of purpose in its daily activity, socially, morally, mentally, economically, in the home, abroad, or where. Let a loving application of ideals be ever presented, for much may be accomplished by the body through loving kindness. But once the will broken, and often commands without reason, will make for detrimental conditions arising in the mental abilities and the physical outlook of the body." So enfolded in this little excerpt from the reading is a lot of what we're going to be talking about: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, how to engage with our teens in all of these areas. And we'd like to start with the physical, because that's often the most tangible and understandable for us. And A.R.E. is such a source of wisdom and expertise in this area. So to sort of cue us up for a discussion of the physical during the teen years, we wanted to share some of the questions that the mother of this girl was asking for in her reading, and then engage through that way. So this mother was asking specifically what caused the sudden fainting spell that took place in her room at college in April, and also, will Sarutin now being taken eventually overcome constipation? And also, why does the body tire so easily? And what causes skin eruptions? So let's sort of bullet out the different issues that this mother is bringing forward, Arlene, if we can, that we want to talk
Mhm.
about here. Yeah.
Yes. So, I want to read through the answer that Casey gave
Hmm.
because to me it was fascinating to read it and look at it through the lens of medical understanding from modern age as well, like through
Hmm.
all that we know now. So
Yeah.
the part of the answer was these are the effects and basic causes arise in a clogging or choking through not only the thyroid glands themselves, but some hindrance through the adrenals and the lack of a balance of activity through the assimilating forces as augmented with the activity of the thymus, as well as the activity in the lacteals as they assimilate from the system through the child's activity to certain food values. Okay,
Hmm.
so that is a lot in
Yeah.
one sentence, but to
Yeah.
me, I so loved how dense and how much information came through in this one sentence. So, this clogging or choking through the thyroid glands. So, if you consider there's inflammation in the system and that inflammation is swelling, and so that thyroid gland itself is congested and having
Hmm.
some difficulty with it. But it's not just the thyroid. That was the first one he mentioned. He said also some hindrance through the adrenals. So, this girl, from my lens of reading this girl also has some aspect of adrenal fatigue. The adrenals produce all different kinds of hormones, including stress hormones. And often when we're stressed, the adrenals start to feel kind of tapped out. It's like you're starting to like run out of gas in the engine. So that we call adrenal fatigue. And so
Hmm.
it seems like there's some element of that that is also contributing to the thyroid issues. But then this difficulty with assimilating forces, um, as you would find with the thymus gland. So the thymus gland produces antibodies, part of our immune system. And I don't have her labs, but it'd be so interesting to see because if the thymus was off, I'm wondering, did she have some sort of autoimmune issues that were contributing to her thyroid dysfunction, like Hashimoto's or contributing to this hypothyroid? And then he mentions the activity of the lacteals. So these are vessels and that are able to assimilate the fats and fat soluble vitamins in the intestines. So it will affect your ability to extract the nutrients from the foods. And
Hmm.
those fat soluble vitamins include vitamins A, which is an antioxidant, D, which we know helps our minerals and calcium and so many other things. E, which is another antioxidant, and vitamin K, which has so many different functions and has to do with clotting or lack of. And so those there might be some imbalance in her assimilation of those vitamins, but
Hmm.
also healthy fats like omega 3s that are important for every cell membrane, important to wrap the nerve axons so that they communicate efficiently so they're not short circuiting because the nerves literally need to communicate with electricity. And
Hmm.
so, and he mentions here, part of it was that she was having what he called like too much potash in her system. She was eating, and so potash are a group of minerals that contain potassium. So
Hmm.
she was getting too much potassium in her diet, and looking at through some of these things and looking through some medical explanations. I mean, there's a fine balance with our electrolytes and our minerals. So low potassium can be an issue, but so can high potassium. And it seems that if you follow a more alkaline diet, then those electrolytes, minerals will be more in balance.
Hmm.
There are some reports where they're studying higher levels of calcium were actually affecting the thyroid and creating like a deficiency in thyroid function.
Mm,
So I did see a study on that, which is very interesting because that thyroid function is important. So if she had low thyroid, that's going to contribute to the rashes, perhaps dry skin, or we're not sure exactly what kind of rash she had, the constipation and low energy. So there
mhm,
is so much here, and they're not all different problems. They're all aspects of the same issue. So
mhm,
there's this imbalance in her diet that is interfering with the alkalinity of the body, the pH of the body, as well as iodine. And he is saying, Cayce is saying this, and so we know that iodine is also very important for the thyroid. So somehow the potassium is interacting with the pH and the iodine and creating more inflammation in the diet. We know if the diet's more acidic, you're going to have more inflammation in the body.
mhm,
Inflammation itself is not bad, but if it is becomes chronic, then it will create a lot of havoc in the body. And
mhm,
inflammation, part of inflammation is swelling, so it will put pressure on different parts of the body. So in this case, what it was putting pressure on the thyroid and other areas of the body. This girl also had some hip issues, so it was putting some pressure there. Inflammation will block some of the circulation, so we need that proper nourishment from the blood supply, from the arteries. We need proper drainage from the venous system and the lymphatic system. And we also need proper hormonal signaling. So if we have that inflammation pressing on different areas of the body, then it's going to interfere with all of those things. So in other parts of the reading, this girl was also having some digestive issues and headaches, and her menstrual cycle was off. So it's again, it looks like a lot of problems, but they're all just different expressions of the same issue going on. And
mhm,
his one of his main recommendations was to shift the diet towards a more alkaline diet, especially avoiding some high potassium foods, bananas, and white potato. So I'm going to read for you the full quote of this dietary recommendation because it's so rich in information, and these recommendations could be applied to many people. So he says, beware of white bread ever. No Irish potatoes, so no white potatoes. No sweets that are taken as of pies, cake, or the like. Honey as sweetening may be taken. So if you need a little sweet, you can get that through honey. Fruits, vegetables are better, but not much of meats. One meal each day, whether morning, evening, or in the noon, one whole meal should consist of raw vegetables. I'm trying to place the emphasis on where the emphasis is placed in the readings too. So combine these of all the leafy and all those vegetables that may be combined in a salad: lettuce, celery, carrots, beans, spinach, lettuce, onions, cabbage, any or all of these. Such a salad may be changed occasionally to a whole fruit meal as apples, oranges, peaches, lemons, pears. Don't put in any bananas. All of these may be combined and used instead of the meal of vegetables. Meats, if they are taken at all, should never be fried. In fact, no fried foods at all, in all caps.
mhm,
So amazing. That is a lot of information in
mhm,
in a couple paragraphs there. He also recommended some gentle liver cleansing. Oh, he had recommended a particular liver tonic and some colon cleansing, as well as osteopathic treatments. But he did emphasize that in order for these things to be maintained, that there needed to be some kind of shift in the diet as described. So, I mean, Corinne and I were so amazed at reading the level of detail in this series of readings.
yeah, the way that you've really beautifully outlined for us, that there's a clogging that had happened here. This clogging had prevented this hormonal and all of these different processes from happening as smoothly as they could, and that's resulting in this tiredness and rashes and headaches and maybe even the, fainting that was happening,
Mhm.
and that's impacting the thyroid and the thymus glands. And so moving on to the sort of mental, emotional, thyroid being connected to like the throat chakra here now as we understand it, throat
Mhm.
being associated with the will, with expression, being able to give voice to our truth or who we know ourselves to be, and that sort of the physical impact on our abilities. And so much of what we're reading in this reading from a mental emotional standpoint has to do with not breaking the will. This is a sort of core concept in the Edgar Cayce readings, how to not break the will. The will being the identity of the
Mhm.
child knowing who they are, why they do what they do, how to take action in the world in a way that aligns with who they know themselves to be. That's true there. So recognizing sort of as parents the interplay between the foods that we're feeding our children, how we're sort of caring for them in that way, with their ability to access their ability to express their will and who they know themselves to be. So at one point in this same first reading, as we're talking about the physical, the physical expressions of her discomfort or what's not working in her life, her mother asks, how can I gain her, my daughter's, complete confidence? And the readings answer, by precept and example in every condition that is presented. Heart to heart talks, not preaching, not lecturing, but as a companionate in every respect. Become the child with the child. See the child's outlook. See the developing body's view of conditions. Listen to those various conditions that are as troublesome forces that arise, whether they pertain to the friendships or the relationships with individuals, or with those problems of life in the relationships with every force in life. Listen and then be able to answer why. It's such a beautiful
Mhm.
reminder of how we relate to our children. So, not breaking the will, there are certain things that we hear in this reading around how to not break the will. What does that actually mean? Right. So, it's number one, what we hear in there is don't preach or lecture, don't give the do's and the don'ts without supplementing the why behind it, right? So where there is sort of an old fashioned, maybe, or people still working with like, do this because I am the parent, right? That's like I'm doing,
Mhm.
do what I say. And that's the way that it goes. And that sort of hard black and white rule for children can lead to a breaking of their will, of their sense of knowing, why am I doing something? Not because someone else tells me to or someone else is doing it, which plays immediately out into peer pressure and feeling susceptible to all of the different forces that are going on in our children's lives. Not doing it just because someone else has told me to, but me doing what I want to do because I know who I am and why I want to be doing that. That understanding of who I am and what do I actually believe and how do I actually see myself in the world comes through these spiritually natured conversations around why things are the way that they are. So as we unpack for our children, I want you to go to bed at this time. I want you to put your phone down at this time. I don't want you to go out with those people, or I don't want you to be in this scenario. That's all fine and well for you to have an opinion, but unpacking with them why that is for you. This is what I'm concerned about. This is what I see happening for you. This is how I see yourself. And then leaving lots of room to listen to, and what is your experience really of being in that position? And maybe this conversation actually even begins with not, this is what I think you should do and why I think you should do it that way, but this is what I'm concerned about. Can you tell me what this is like for you? And so much of children, so much of working with teenagers has to do with they don't want to talk to us anytime, all the time about everything that's
Mm.
going on. So finding those times where we may be able to have those conversations, or just listening to what they are willing to offer us, and then normalizing it. Wow, that totally makes sense to me. I remember when this happened. what is this like for you, and looking for a gateway in that way, and really being able to put ourselves in our children's shoes, which we're not able to do unless we're really listening, because everything that they're holding in their lives right now, we did not have to hold in the same way. No, main thing being the phones and the access to technology that our children have now through all of the screens, and what that means. We just didn't have that in the same way. So we need to put down our barriers and really put ourselves in a position of being able to listen and try and imagine what that was like for them. And then really leading by example with our children is
Mhm.
the third thing. So understand that, helping them understand the why, really being willing to put ourselves in their shoes and listen, and then leading by example, not by lecturing. So anything that we're asking our children to do, being willing to do it ourselves, whether that has to do with the food that we're having them eat, or how much screen time we're allowing them to have, or when we want them to do all of the many things, really being willing to do that ourselves first, which is a real invitation to grow, to take to heart what it is that we want our children to be doing, to be willing to do it ourselves. So those are
Yes.
some of the main things that I hear in there.
I
Yeah.
I love that, and, that answer the why, it's funny because then I start to hear this echo of, like, the two-year-old, the toddler years when they're like, "Why? Why? Why?" So,
Right.
later on, they may not ask directly quite like that, but it feels really good if they have some understanding, and then in explaining the why, to not explain in a lecturing tone,
Totally.
to explain in just a loving, um, kind tone, like, that's more neutral, not judging of where they are right now. It's like what you're saying, Corinne, like, explain the concern, explain the why behind that, and then maybe have a conversation with them to see what their perspective is, and if they have ideas of how to address those concerns, or, if they're even concerned about it at all. But and it may not be that one, and it's not gonna be that one and done conversation. Maybe you're if we're lucky at times, but, usually it's what he says, precept by precept, so it's step by step, and it's, something I say, it's like small steps done consistently create miraculous results, so it's just taking it that step by step, because in this reading, the letters that the mom wrote to Casey, she was obviously very anxious about her child, and being able
Mhm,
to make the right decisions to
mhm,
help her child. And so, whether it's building the confidence for the physical body, but also, I mean, developing that spirit. And so, feel really living fully with, like, body, mind, and spirit.
mhm.
So that takes us on to this excerpt from Spirit.
Yeah, and maybe we'll can continue talking about will a little bit as we explore the spiritual nature of it, because really clearly in the mental spiritual reading that was given for this girl is the importance of bringing the spiritual side of things to the forefront. So this is a compilation of some of what's said in that mental spiritual reading 1204-4. This was the fourth and final reading given for her. It says, for the entity will learn, that is the entity being this girl, life must be purposeful, and that each entity, as it chooses its way of expression, finds life manifested in that manner, or patterns may be drawn from same in that particular choice the entity makes in activity. Then in thy daily dealings with others, forget not to interpret the lesson, the problem of the day, from a spiritual angle, not that as of a goody goody manner, not that as of rote for rote's sake, but as is expressed in nature, step by step, line by line, precept upon precept, because it gives such certain security in life and its expressions in the earth as to make same more worthwhile. Hence, that injunction that as you attract others, give them something of the spiritual import that makes their lives better, thinking better, hoping better, looking for the better, not materially, but in the high mental forces. So, what's really being encouraged here is that Why do we want there to be an ideal that's alive in your life? That why do we want to take a spiritual angle or find the meaning and purpose? And the answer that is given here is because it gives such security in life and its expressions in the earth as to make same more worthwhile. So it brings security and meaning, which is really what
Mhm.
teenagers need so much of, right? Am I safe in the world as I am? Can I be myself? Can I be different? Can I do what I want to do and be uh and understand who I am in that, right? And so when they have an ideal, when there's a spiritual essence to what's going on, that sense of security and meaning happens there, and that becomes a path beneath
Mhm.
them. That becomes a road to walk. And what does spiritual actually mean? This is what I love about this excerpt as well. Like, what does it mean to add a spiritual angle to things?
Mhm.
And what it is offered here is thinking better, hoping better, looking for the better, not materially, but in the high mental forces. So, what I hear in that is focusing on the positive, choosing optimism, looking for the thing that is good for you, for your child, really, for your teenager specifically. What feels good to you? What helps you feel uplifted and inspired and motivated, and really bringing those things to the forefront, and that makes life feel better, right? So often if we're listening to a story that our teen may be telling us, and you can hear a tone in it that's really judgmental about other people, or often really judgmental on themselves, or that's very negative in some way, or downtrodden, or very full of fear, like finding in there the path of what is positive, not you need to do better, right? Like not goody
Mhm.
goody manner or rote for rote's sake, like rote being just doing something because you're supposed to be doing it,
Mhm.
or I want to be such a good person so that's why I'm doing it, but more like how do we find the loving kindness within there? What is the one good thing in our house? We often say, like, what was your rose today? Like, what was that little blossom that happened today? And really elevating that, bringing it to the forefront, or that helps remind them of who they are, because that's their joy. That's what's making them happy. And that's what's helping things feel a little bit better, starts to bring to life the ideal in their way. So there's a fair bit here of not only of strengthening the will in a child, is reflecting back to them that which you see to be good in them, is a will
Mhm.
strengthening activity in and of itself. And that as we do that, that path of meaning and security and knowing ourselves begins to open before our children day by day. It's a way of living a spiritual ideal, which, as we've said again and again on this podcast, is the most important thing that the Edgar Cayce readings say that we can do, is to set and to know our spiritual ideal. So we're sort of threading it all together, from the alkaline diet that needs to be happening for the flow so we can access ourselves, all the way through how do we actually work with setting a spiritual ideal for our children. All of the beautiful material here. This is Arlene and I picking examples from 4 different readings given for this one person, this one girl between the ages of 12 and 22. The spiritual reading came through at 22 as she was leaving college. Like, all of this wholeness of body, mind, spirit that we can
Mhm.
be doing all the time. And so much relational work between the mother and the daughter, between the parent and the daughter, of how to be fully supporting and guiding and present with her. It's just so rich. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I love what he's saying here. It's not of a goody goody manner. So not labeling the child as a good or bad person. It's
Mhm.
it's really, like, shifting things and helping them understand and know their why, and, know how the ideal, like, what how would they like to be? What
Yeah.
how and how would they like to navigate the world, and, um, and to hope better, with kindness, to think better.
Yeah.
So it's a really beautiful series of reading. So thank you, Corinne, for putting that together. It was really, we did it a little bit differently this time because we followed one person in this
Mhm.
thread through this very important time of life, and she happened to have these 4 readings that had so much information,
Yeah.
um, but like very succinctly, like every sentence, every word said so much.
Yeah. So, what a great, so many inspiring reminders and things to bring to life as we navigate these waters with our teens. Yeah, Arlene? Such an
Absolutely.
adventure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I cannot wait for our next conversation. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for this. I just
I know,
love it.
thank you, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, I have 3 teens. So, I'm like, how much this applies in my life.
I know.
I
I've
was like,
got
I
one and
can't
another
believe I
knocking at the door. Yeah, we're right there in it. This is could not be more relevant. Yeah. So
have
I hope it is for you all as well. And take such good care of those.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here with us. Thanks, Corinne.